to the first learning event in our series, Stories of Personal Transformation. And today's event is called Situational Analysis of Gender-Based Violence in Pakistan. Before we begin, I would like to start by welcoming everyone. We are beginning this event on the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, Tsuut'ina Nations, Stoney Nakoda, and also home of Métis Nation Region 3 in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And we would like to acknowledge that this event today is part of our ongoing commitment to reconciliation between our migrant and settlement communities and the First Peoples of this land, Indigenous peoples. We would also like to say that we acknowledge that this event is part of our overall global peace building work, and we're so excited to be part of that. Yeah, I'm just going to go to my next slide. Also today we are sharing, we're so excited because today's presentation is being shared with all of you from both Pakistan and Canada. And in honor of Ramadan, we have shared the jasmine flower, which I believe, and Dr. Aamir can correct me, is the national flower of Pakistan. And so I want to say here in Calgary, we still have some snow on the ground. So we don't have the jasmine flower, but it's so beautiful to see that flower. And it reminded me of global friendships and what we're trying to build together here today and through our work. I also wanted to say that we're so excited today to be launching this global partnership through our work together. And this talk is really a first in a series that's going to be looking at men's work, men's efforts to address gender-based violence, to promote gender equity, gender justice, and also looking at the idea of peace building within and across the nations and regions of Pakistan, the Caribbean, Nepal, and Canada. And I'm going to invite my good friend, Dr. Aamir Jamal, to share so much more about that. Before I say that, I would like to say I am Liza Lorenzetti. I am a faculty member at the University of Calgary, Faculty of Social Work, and a good friend and colleague of Dr. Aamir Jamal's.
Thank you so much, Liza. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, Canada. Good afternoon, Trinidad. And good evening, Pakistan and India and Nepal. And we have participants from different countries over there, I heard. My name is Aamir Jamal, and I am Associate Professor at the Faculty of Social Work, University of Calgary, and co-investigator with Liza and other colleagues in this wonderful, this fascinating project. We are so excited to begin this meaningful journey together with all of you, the communities in Canada, in Trinidad, Nepal, and Pakistan. Thank you for your time today. As we know, it's the beautiful month of Ramadan for Muslims around the globe. Very special time. And very special thank you to our team and audience from Pakistan and other countries who are celebrating this beautiful month, because it is in Pakistan particularly, it is a time of iftar, and you just had some food. It is a time of like breaking the fast in these long days. So I know how it feels right now for you. So thank you for your time today. This is the beginning. The beginning of today's journey is about a precious cause, very precious cause, a noble cause. It's not just a research project, but a mission, a social justice movement, a consciousness-raising initiative with goals for reflexivity for men, creating dialogue, transformative change for ourselves and our communities. Specifically, this journey is about an important issue, significant issue for all of us in our communities that has a profound impact on our well-being and the well-being of our families and communities across the globe. Prevention of domestic violence. Prevention of domestic violence in our communities, and particularly in context of this project, men engagement in these initiatives, men involvement, men's initiatives for these movements. As we know, in recent years, many initiatives and social movements have been emerged to encourage men's involvement in ending domestic violence, gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, and promoting gender equity. Although limited research has examined the impact of men's participation in these initiatives, and few strategies are documented that encourage men's involvement. This project is all about that, to fill that gap, working with researchers and community and organizational leaders from different contexts, Trinidad, Nepal, Pakistan, Canada. Our study will generate country and region specific and cross-regional knowledge by investigating what narratives do men from these diverse contexts share about their perspectives and the influences and experiences that encourage them to become involved in those initiatives in prevention of gender-based violence and gender equity, including what actions, impacts, challenges, and personal transformation they experienced. We want to know all about that. We want to know about those stories. So this is basically our research project. This is this global initiative we have started, and such an exciting moment that we are beginning this journey from this session today. I will request Liza to share about the knowledge mobilization and community engagement activities, which are integral part of this journey. Over to you, Liza.
Thank you, Aamir. I think it's really important to acknowledge our wonderful partners. And so I just would like to say we're so excited to have a wonderful group that's along this co-journey with us, including Dr. Gabrielle Hussein from the Institute of Gender and Development Studies at the University of West Indies, St. Augustine campus. Peter Weller and Kevin Liverpool from CariMan, or the Caribbean Men's Network. The Dr. Muhammed Ibrar, Vakar Ahmad, and Asif Khan from the University of Peshawar, and Mr. Anis Khan from Hashar Association. And also here in Canada, and crossing also the oceans to our friends and partners is Dr. Aamir Jamal, Jeff Halverson, Janelle Leepong, Sarah Thomas, Dr. Christine Walsh, and all with the University of Calgary, Abbas Mansi with the Alberta Men's Network, Dr. Rita Dungal with MacEwan University, also representing and connecting with Nepal, and of course, Ms. Kamal Segal from the Alberta Network of Immigrant Women. So we're excited and welcoming everyone who's on the line as well, everyone who have come to join us and hear from our amazing speakers today. And I just wanted to say that we're so excited. Part of our co-journey together as partners is we're going to be having more talks in our series from all our regions. And we look forward to inviting all of you to these upcoming talks. If you'd like to know more about our project or be added to the list, I think that Janelle is going to add our email address to the chat. If it's not there already, you can reach us there. And now I'm going to invite Janelle, who's one of our project coordinators, to provide some housekeeping about the event before we introduce our amazing speakers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lorenzetti. So welcome everyone, and we're so happy to have you here this morning and this evening. First things first, if you are new to the webinar platform, you'll notice that only the speakers have the ability to enable their microphones and their video. So as participants, there are no microphones and no videos, but we do have access to the chat function. So if we could ask you one thing, it would be if you could type in the chat where you are from and where you are currently located. We would love to see where our international audience is attending from. And one more thing is we do have a question and answer function going throughout the entirety of the presentation. So if I see some hands are raised, if you have questions, you're more than welcome to type them in that Q&A area at the bottom of the screen there. And we will have some time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions you might have. So thank you very much. And I'll hand it back over to Dr. Jamal.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Thank you, Liza. So as Liza said, in the beginning of this project, we thought what a good idea that as it is a global study, so what about each region, each country, a team of each country, basically talk about, they share the status of their region and highlight their contextual perspective on gender-based violence. So here we are beginning with the first team, Pakistan team. So today we have our wonderful team from Pakistan sharing about situational analysis of gender-based violence in that region. So let me introduce our speakers from Pakistan. First one, Dr. Muhammed Ibrar. He is Associate Professor at the University of Peshawar with more than 10 years of research, policy development, and practice experience in this sector. Second speaker we will have Muhammad Asif. He is a researcher in the area of GBV, an MPhil student and visiting lecturer at the University of Peshawar. And then we have Zainab Khan, who is the provincial head of UN Women, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, Pakistan, who is keeping a close eye on the status and well-being of women in that region. So, and I will join in the end. So let's begin our conversation with Dr. Muhammed Ibrar. Over to you, Dr. Ibrar.
Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Good morning to Canadian team and good afternoon to my Pakistani team. I'm very grateful to and very thankful to Liza and Aamir for being a part of their team. Generally, you will operate the presentation. Just a minute.
Yes, we will have the presentation up for you in a moment, Dr. Ibrar.
Okay, then lead next. Okay, on my part, I will discuss on the situational analysis of gender-based violence, and my part will be from the worldwide perspective, and then will to the regional level, and that is in South Asia and Pacific. And in the last, I will talk on the situational analysis of GB in Pakistan. Next, please. Next. Okay, this is a pictorial, you can say, presentation about the GBV. We have the same distance, but the different path. Next. Okay, there are some sort of facts about the gender-based violence that is worldwide, and around the world, at least 9 in every 3 women has been beaten, forced into sex, or otherwise abused by a man in her lifetime. And more than 20% of women are reported to have been abused by men with whom they live. Again, if we talk about the sex industry, each year 2 million girls from the ages from 5 to 15 are introduced into the sex industry worldwide. Among women ages from 15 to 44 years, gender-based violence account for more death and disability than the combined efforts of cancer, malaria, traffic-related injuries, and war. Women have and are victims of domestic violence are more times likely to attempt suicide than those do not have experienced such violence. Next, please. Only 1 in 100 abused women in US, they report their abuse from which she has been suffered, and every 9 seconds a woman is battered by her domestic partner. In France, 95% of victims of violence are women, and 51% of them are the hands of their husband. In Russia, half of murder victims are women killed by their male partner. So if you can see in the data, in the facts, most of the time their male partner or immediate partner, they are the one who has been who has the main culprit in gender-based violence. Next, please. If we come to the Asian Pacific region, only 52 countries worldwide have passed laws on marital rape since 2015. And if we talk about the Asia and Pacific, 91% of the survivors in Thailand and 86% of survivors in Vietnam stated that they knew their rapists prior to their incidents. And in 2019, just in Afghanistan, in the case of Afghanistan and East Timor, 46% of the women have experienced intimate, they have experienced the violence by their partner, or their husband, or their intimate partner. Next, please. Okay, in Bangladesh, over 54% of women and Fiji, almost they have 64% of women has physical or sexual violence by, again, their intimate partner in their lifetime. In China, we have the studies shows that 38% of women experience psychological violence by their own partner. In East Asia and Pacific, women and girls make up to 77% of trafficked persons, and the most frequently detected from the exploitation among the trafficked person in the region in sexual exploitation, making up 61% of detected cases. Next, please. In Indonesia, 49% of the girls who has been the age of 14 years undergone some form of female genital mutilation, although it is banned there, but it is still practicing over there. About 650 million girls and women alive today have been married before reaching the age of 18, and 44% of all child brides are from South Asia, and 12% of them are specifically from East Asia and Pacific. Next, please. Okay, here are the progress in this region they have made against the violence against women. And almost 90% of the region, they have their laws regarding the violence against women. And a third of the countries in the region have now criminalized the marital rape. It's a crime, and it's considered a crime now. 9 countries now have dedicated national action plan, which are active of 2018. In November 2015, the ASEAN member state adopted the ASEAN Regional Plan of Action on the elimination of violence against women, and it is one of the most documented, you can say, the treaty that was made in 2015 by the ASEAN state. Is for 2019, 26 countries of this region They have done their national statistic on the intimate life partner violence. And again, in continuation to date, 24 countries, they have conducted their national prevalence studies on violence against women, and Pakistan is among those countries as well. In 2019, 19 countries have the national statistic on sexual violence by their non-partners. Next, please. Okay, before coming into detail in Pakistani perspective, we have to look about some demographic issues. These are the issues which will be also a cause for the GBV in this region. If we can see the level of literacy among the women, literacy ratio among Pakistan, it's 43% as a whole. Among them, the men have their 70%, and in KP we have the literacy of among the women, they are 35%. Again, if we can see about the health issues, more women die during pregnancy, delivery of children, and malnutrition in Pakistan. And we have one of the highest maternal mortality ratio in this region, which is 276, and in KP we have 206, which is very high in this region, specifically in South Asia and Pacific. If we talk about the labor force, women who are working here, but they are considered in less productive activities, and their work is not counted and valued. Just for example, in a recent study by the ILO, that in Pakistan, women have just 17% of their participation in the labor force, although we have a labor force of 85.7%, they are male, and 25.7% female among across Pakistan. If we talk about the political participation, so again, we have only 16% of quota for the female in the upper house and 28% for men. Again, 12 million women are less in voter registration as compared to men in Pakistan. So again, here, if we can see about the political opportunities, again, the female have very less opportunities in this regard. Next, please. Okay. As per the World Economic Forum report that was published in 2020, Pakistan is, and he has been ranked among the one of the most devastating country. Just have 155 out of 153 countries on global gender gap index, and which is a very alarming situation. Again, one in two Pakistani women who has experienced violence never sought help or told anyone about the violence they have experienced. The conviction rate of the violence against women said is at only 1 to 2.5%, which is almost, you can say it is zero. Why Driven Pakistan? It's national NGO who has conducted a research study again the sexual violence, and they have a sample of 47,000 and 3,400. So they have said that over 15,000 cases of honor crimes were registered in 2019 and 20, and more than 1,800 cases of domestic violence and 5,500 cases of kidnapping. Next, please. According to the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, they have published a report in 2020. The most common forms of domestic abuse are shouting, they are or yelling, they are 76%, slapping 52%, threatening 49%, pushing 47%, and punching 40%, and kicking there 40%. So this is the recent data they have registered, and they have been published by the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. In 2020, again, we have a report in Delhi Masjid in which it is stated that 5,515 women were brought to only 5 government-run shelter homes as survivors of gender-based violence, including domestic violence. Next, please. As we are experiencing the pandemic since 2020, and again, we will study the impact of COVID-19 on the gender-based violence. And in the period of COVID pandemic, data and reports from those on the front lines have revealed that all types of violence against women and girls, particularly domestic violence, has intensified. Again, here is a BOLO helpline, which is run by the Social Welfare and Women Empowerment Department of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They have a study from March 2020 to December 2020. And in the report, they said that the violence increased by 45% in KP during this COVID time. Next, please. Again, this is the increase of domestic violence, violence against women, harassment at workplace, rape, kidnapping. It is the data of the COVID time, that is from February 2020 to February 2021. Next, please. State of the current status of the women in Pakistan, that is, there are 18 cases of harassment at the workplace, of which 16 were reported in Punjab. Punjab is one of the most populous in this country. Similarly, 230 cases of rape out of 250, 224 were reported from Punjab. Punjab reported 895% of the cases out of total 444 in kidnapping. Balochistan reported only one case of kidnapping during the last 6 months. Next, please. So for my part, it was the statistic of the worldwide Pakistan, and it's over to Asif now.
Asif, over to you now.
Yes, thank you. I hope I am audible to everyone.
Yes, yes, you are.
Hello, everyone. This is Asif Khan from Pakistan, and I feel equally excited to be part of this wonderful project that envisions to engage men around the world in gender justice. Dr. Ibrar has rightly pointed out some drastic figures of GBV that happen around the world, in Asia and Pacific, and particularly in Pakistan. However, since our country has physical existence of more than 70 years and belongs to a geographical location that has thousands of years of history, among which many cultures and ruling systems has passed by. So over the years, a lot of progress has been made to the development of many sectors, including overcoming this menace of gender-based violence. In response to GBV and violence with the women, Pakistan keeps a record of laws that are pro-women and that protects women from any kind of violence. This list you can see on the screen is of laws that are applicable in the law and order situation of Pakistan. All of these plays a significant role and has provided great care from protecting women from the violence or for acquiring their rights. From the earlier days of Pakistan independence to Constitution of Pakistan to recent times, amendments and new development of laws is being made that are pro-women. However, there is still a lot of gap in the right implementation and supremacy of these laws, as you all have witnessed it yourself. For instance, you can see Child Marriage Act 1929 that is applicable in Pakistan. Child marriages have been one of the most problematic issues in Pakistan. The biggest issue relates to the age of majority, which under Islamic law is age of puberty, while in other legislation it varies from the age of 16 to 18. The issue of child marriages is related to a number of other societal issues and customary practices such as exchange marriages, forced marriages, practice of giving women and children in compensation in tribal familial clashes, etc. All often include the element of child marriage. So this act deals with all these things. Now, the first and major progressive legislation on women in Pakistan after independence was the promulgation of Muslim Family Law Ordinance in 1961. The MFLO was based on the recommendations of the Commission on Marriage and Family Law set up in 1955. The primary aim of MFLO was to discourage polygamy and regulate divorce. Polygamy means when a man is married to one, then more wives at the same time. And you all know it's very common practice. And the last one, you can see that Anti-Terrorism Act 1997, this law covers issues of child molestation and gang rape. These all are laws that are applicable in Pakistan. Next, please. Next, please. Among all these laws, I'll be discussing the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Please come to the previous slide. Okay, thank you. I'll be discussing about the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. This is the standard setting document of Pakistan. It identifies the basic principles by which all other laws must abide. It also identifies the fundamental rights of citizens of Pakistan, identifying the basic rights and freedoms which must be not be violated by any law or practice in the country. It affirms in its fundamental rights and principles that the state is committed to eliminating this country. For example, let me read a couple of articles that are pro-women. Article 25(2) adds, there shall be no discrimination on the basis of sex. Similarly, Article 34 in the Principles of Policy session states that steps shall be taken to ensure full participation of women in all spheres of national life. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, the graph you can see on the screen is about the Pakistan Penal Code. Pakistan Penal Code it was documented in 1861 and it is usually called PPC. It is a penal code for the offences charged in Pakistan, whereas the PPC covers the majority of criminal offences. For example, it includes physical harm of any sort, that is like illegal touching, violence or abuse. It includes honor killings. It includes kidnapping of women and children, human trafficking, forced prostitution, and forced marriages, depriving a woman of her inheritance, and a number more. With time and development, the recent pro-women laws have focused on making amendments in the PPC to address any shortfalls. Next, please. Now I'll be discussing about the post 18th Amendment laws, and for those my friends from Canada who don't know about the 18th Amendment, it's the amendment of the Constitution of the Pakistan. It was passed by the National Assembly of Pakistan in 2010, and it removed the power of the President of Pakistan to dissolve the parliament unilaterally, turning Pakistan from a semi-presidential to a parliamentary republic and making all the provinces of Pakistan autonomous. In 2013, the Sindh Assembly anonymously passed a domestic violence prevention and protection bill to protect women, children, and other vulnerable groups from physical and psychological harm. It was followed by Balochistan in 2014, and it was followed by Punjab in 2016. And similarly, in 2021, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Assembly passed the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Domestic Violence Against Women Prevention and Protection Act. Next, please. The last one I'll be discussing about is an important intervention we made in the Pakistani system, and it was the establishment of Ombudsperson under the Protection Act Against Harassment of Women at the Workplace. Under this act, it was supposed that there will be a federal Ombudsperson Secretariat for Protection Against Harassment, and it is working since 2010. In 2012, the government of Sindh. In 2013, the government of Punjab. In 2019, the government of Balochistan. And finally, late but rightly in 2019, the government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has established the provincial ombudsperson for the protection against harassment of women at the workplace. In 2020, a total number of 154 cases of harassment at workplace in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has been reported. These ombudsperson offices has created a great impact in reducing harassment at workplace, and along with harassment at workplace, these offices are also working with government departments, academia, and international organizations to help reduce all forms of PTV at mass level. That's all from my side. Thank you. Over to Aamir.
Okay, now we will invite Zainab Khan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lisa, Dr. Aamir Jamal, the other colleagues, friends from University of Calgary, and my colleagues from University of Peshawar. Thank you very much for having me here. I'll be throwing some light on the GBV prevalence in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So the slide that's in front of us, if you look at the top left corner, the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, an area which is called Fata. They are now all together, and they are the bordering areas with Afghanistan. And looking at the GBV prevalence and the domestic violence, the situation is quite alarming. The data is from Pakistan, taken from Pakistan Demographic Health Survey, which is done every 5 years. And it was determined that the female who were married between the age of 15 and 49, how much the gender-based violence occurs to them. And considering the 66% in that particular bordering area of Afghanistan, and the 52% in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is quite alarming. Now, a little bit of a research was also done to identify that what are the root causes of these violence attacks on the female. So it was found that the family with low literacy rate, with poverty, with less information about the healthy living style, living in the area where the access is very difficult. So there was more violence in those areas than the ones that are literate and are enjoying good economic conditions and are also living in the urban areas and not rural areas. Please, next slide. Now, the type of gender-based violence in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, again, I'll say this is the bordering province with Afghanistan. There's a lot of physical abuse, and the researchers show that there's an acceptability of the beating by the husband and the family. And this is very much because of the lack of awareness, lack of rights, lack of healthy life, exercising healthy lifestyle. There's an economic abuse also involved, because in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, a lot of female population is involved in the agriculture sector. However, they have no access to the earnings. Their contribution is more than 50%, but when it comes to the earning due to that agriculture, they are not given enough share. There's an emotional abuse as well, without realizing that what is being done comes under this category. Sexual harassment and the rape cases, they are very much prevalent among the transgender people, among the children. Honor killing is also an area where the government is looking into, and there's a lot of cases reported. No access to service, child marriages, as Dr. Asif rightly pointed out, that child marriage and forced marriage is also an area that's prevalent in this geographical location, and work is being done to overcome that. Next slide, please. This is a heat map of incidence of child marriage, and the information is taken from the costing study done by UN Women Pakistan. And again, on the top left side, if you can see that there are high incidents of child marriages and medium incidents as well, but there are more high. And the ones that are not actually without any color are those areas which security wise were very difficult to go and access the information of. And these marriages are happening under the age of 18, under the age of 16, under the age of 15, with different percentages. Next slide, please. So the main question for the government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa was that in this GBV prevalent situation, what can they do actually to encounter all these things? So they devised a women empowerment policy. Let me clarify that socio-cultural settings and understanding is very important. In this particular area, we cannot talk very openly about the gender-based violence. So whatever work is done, whatever policies being made, whatever programs are made, this concept is embedded in all those things. I mean, it's not vocal, nobody's vocal about it, but the measures are done that to combat this evil practice. This is an embedded component in the different strategies. So provincial government in 2017 drafted this women empowerment policy, which was visioning that women will be empowered so they can realize their full potential and participate fully in development. Because if they are able to do so, then they will be able to say no to the GBV as well. Next slide. And what was the reason that the government moved forward to have this women empowerment policy? It's almost 50% of a population of female population in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and we have one of the lowest literacy rate. And when we look at the bordering districts of Afghanistan with Afghanistan, that's even more less. And look at the gap between the literacy of the male and the female, which is male are 72% and the female is only 36%. It's quite alarming. There are less opportunities as well. There are more educational accessibilities for the boys, but very less to the girls. Limited mobility because of those social cultural restrictions, lack of services, and very hard areas where the security situation is very difficult. So female are all often not actually able to move. There is economic pressure on the families as well. There's a poverty rate, and the people are living below the poverty rate, and that is one of the main reason of the GBV occurrence as well. And also to make commitments towards the Constitution of Pakistan that Dr. Asif already touched upon, that in order to abide by some of the clauses of the Constitution of Pakistan, the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa had to devise this women empowerment policy. Next slide. So these are guiding principles of the women empowerment policy. And as we can see, all these 8 guiding principles, GBV is rooted in all of these ones. Let's skip this slide and we can spend more time on the next one. So these are the core policy components. There are 4 policy components. One is social empowerment, economic empowerment, political empowerment, and legal empowerment and access to justice. Where in the social empowerment, the measures are documented that how socially the state will empower the female in all walks of life. In economic empowerment, what will be the state and the non-state actors that will contribute more towards the economic empowerment of the female population of the province, and they have devised multiple policies as well, and they are working towards that the female should participate in the different sectors of the government institutions. Political empowerment, in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we do have that international commitment of having the percentage of female political participation, the member of parliaments. However, sadly, they are not given any role in the decision making. They are not part of the cabinet. So now much work is being done that those female who have been able to become the part of the legislative assembly should be at the level of the decision making at the ministerial level as well. Legal empowerment and access to justice, it's very important for the female, because when we are talking about the access to justice and access to service, then it's also important that this should be the environment and the services should be made in such a way that even any female living, no matter in whatever condition, whatever socioeconomic area, are able to get easy access to all these things. Next, please. Now a bit towards the states and the non-states actors that are contributing towards the violence-free society. I'll talk about the gap analysis of legislation related to ending violence against women. We did know that there are multiple legislations that the government has brought in the province, and it is a study done with the government and UN Women, which is analyzing the gap. And we analyzed like that where are the normative gaps, the implementation gaps, and the monitoring gaps in the current legislations, how to make them more good, how to make them more reformative, that it brings a positive change at the provincial level. Then the government is working hard to enhance the capacity of the Ombudsperson Office, which is responsible for protection of women against harassment at workplace. Multiple measures are taken to strengthen the office, and this office is currently very active across the province and is assisting the labor force, female labor force, and also supporting the work environments to be more inclusive and to be more friendly towards the female. Next, please. The gender profiling of merged districts. Merged districts are those tribal areas that are recently became a part of the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. These were previously called the tribal areas. So a quick study, as the government currently is making all the effort that there should be accelerated development in this area, because this area was prone to disasters, the man-made emergencies, the security situation. It was a war zone. So we, along with the government, the UN along with the government, did a kind of profiling where we evaluated the prevalence of GBV, also the political participation of the female, and what was the education rate, health and economic opportunities. And this particular knowledge product is assisting the government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in bringing the targeted developmental plans to enhance the female empowerment in this area. And the last one is the child marriage costing study. The matter of child marriage is very sensitive because whenever it's brought to a table, there are many religious factors relevant to it, cultural things relevant to it. So the unique thing that was adapted to bring the child marriage restraint legislation was to give it a new picture, like to see that how much economic loss the state will have if the children will get married at a very early age. So this is also helping us a lot, and this is a kind of a thing, a debate that through this, a debate is now generated that how much the economy can be saved and how much the female and the male participation in the workforce can be enhanced if there are no child marriages. I think so. This is the. Is there any other slide? If we can go to the next one. Yes, there's one more. Now I'll also talk about the gender-based violence in the onset of COVID-19. Government had launched a awareness campaign. When I said that there are very difficult, hard to reach areas in the government in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, but surprisingly, the best mode of awareness is through radio. The people are fond of radio, and there are local radios and the state-owned radios that the people listen to. So a massive awareness campaign about the COVID response was done in collaboration with the government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and combating gender-based violence was one of that area. And the next one is the helpline, which was an existing helpline of provincial institution. And during the COVID situation, this helpline was divided into 10 segments, and one segment was targeted towards the women and child protection, that anyone who called the helpline for this specific, there was advanced and very focused information given to them and referrals made for their protection. For the COVID-19, the state also made gender-based violence working groups at the provincial level. They enhanced the service delivery for the female. They also made some standard operating procedures for the protection of the women in the quarantine facilities and the psychosocial support at the women shelters, because they were the ones who needed the support more. And next, please. Now we are going to see a short video by a program that during the COVID situation, how the provincial government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa did some efforts through the helpline 1700 to target the needs of women. You may play the video, please.
Hi, Dawn, if you could play the video for us, please. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of our attendees for your patience at this time.
Financial impacts of COVID-19 pandemic have posed challenges to the basic human rights of vulnerable sections of the society, especially women and children. Like many other developing nations, Pakistan is also facing challenges to safeguard the rights of women and children throughout the country.
People were spending so much time at home, especially men who were earning men and now not having a job, that the stress levels went up and the children were also staying at home. So we have observed that violence against women increased. It has been a very difficult time for women and children in Pakistan. Women especially because they faced gender-based violence more, they faced the economic cuts more, livelihood issues more than men.
Pakistan, with existing societal and economic challenges, have witnessed an exponential increase in women protection issues due to the recent outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic.
The most hard hit were the women of Pakistan, especially those women who were residing in the lower strata of the society. These women are engaged in different activities, specifically women home-based workers who tend to work from the confines of their homes. Due to COVID and the restrictions on their mobility, their economic activity came to a halt.
Considering the risk of a massive outbreak of COVID-19 in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the Provincial Disaster Management Authority, PDMA, and the Relief, Rehabilitation and Settlement, RRNS Department have made multiple efforts to devise response strategy in this regard.
Gender-sensitive approach towards disaster management has been an active component of our working. During COVID-19 public health emergency, PDMA's helpline 1700 had a dedicated section for women and child protection with the name of Gender and Child Cell, which made it easy for this vulnerable segment of population to reach out and call us for help.
UN Women closely collaborated with PDMA KP and extended its technical support to address the human vulnerability and ensure protection of women, children, and other vulnerable groups. The PDMA Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has an already existing helpline 1700, the scope of which, in the current scenario of COVID-19, has been enhanced, and one of the important components included is a dedicated help component for women and child protection.
In COVID-19 public health emergency, UN Women Pakistan worked with Provincial Disaster Management Authority to introduce a segment for women and child protection in their helpline 1700. So any call that was received with a particular focus on the protection of the women and children was directed towards that dedicated line for technical support.
The Women and Child Protection section received more than 1,000 calls till October 2020. This new added support service is proving to be a sign of hope for many vulnerable women. Most of the times, domestic disputes and discords go unreported and remain hidden because of the absence of proper services. The support mechanisms, like the PDMA helpline 1700, is a ray of hope for thousands of vulnerable of the population who suffer in silence every day.
Okay, thank you so much, Ibrar, Dr. Ibrar, Asif, and Zainab Khan for your thoughtful presentation. So much information and data and context. Yeah, the situation is not encouraging, as we can see globally, and then we see particularly in Pakistan for women and on these issues. But we can also appreciate that there is some progress. There are some good news. There are things that has been done. And let me say this, I would acknowledge the leadership of women, Pakistani women, Pashtun women, who are in all these challenging times doing their job, trying their best to bring those positive changes. But I would just here, I would say that it's by acknowledging women in their leading role in these initiatives. Unless men, who I call the gatekeepers in my early research work, if they are not fully aligned, fully in support of it, fully understand the issue and its impact for them in their communities, the change is difficult. So in my research and in this current research project, here we are going to engage the gatekeeper, this guy, to open the gate for conversation around these issues so we can move on. Next slide, Janelle. The question arises that men being in a privileged position, right? Why they should care? Because we always discuss it in different settings. This is men's issue. It's not just women's issue. This is the issue of our children, the well-being of our families, our communities, our society, and our state. Violence is not good. Violence is not good in any shape, in any form, because violence at home is well connected with violence at the family, community, and ultimately larger scale at the state level. I am a Pashtun man. I am a Pakistani. And we all know that our region has been devastated by different forms of violence. And this one, domestic violence, gender-based violence, violence against women is one of the significant forms that has an impact in all different shapes, in different settings, in different contexts, at different levels. So we men should care because it is impacting the well-being of us men, of our families, our children, and our communities, and our women. Next slide. It's a learned behavior. Why we should care? Because we can change it. Because it's a learned behavior. But it requires authentic actions at multiple levels. At individual level, to be reflective about it, what I'm doing, why I'm doing, what's the impact of what I'm doing, and what will happen if I change. At cultural and religious context, bringing up the authentic religious teaching. Often, religion is misused for these issues. But when I'm in the field, and when most of you bring authentic Islamic teaching, things will change. So there is need for policy changes and awareness and also in organization and service providers who are working down there in the field. Next slide. Okay, let me share this with you, that in my almost 15 years of research and practice in this region, we are talking about Pakistan and particularly KP region. When I go to villages, when I go to cities, when I go even to far areas, in every village, I found some men. There may not be many, but there are men. There are some men who reject these oppressive cultural norms, who are actively involved in prevention of domestic violence, who are actively involved in gender justice initiatives, who want to see their world, their children, their villages, violence-free, a just and fair world around them. They are the men. This is the encouraging news. So despite significant challenges they are facing from the community, they are standing firm for the prevention of all forms of violence. I will send my daughter to school, whatever, even if sometimes the tribal or cultural issues are creating walls. I remember a man saying, "This is not my daughter, this is my son. I'm going to send her to school, whatever." I know those people. There are many those men who say, no beating of women, no beating of my daughter, no beating of my sister, no beating of wife. And when I also meet religious leaders, religious scholars, and when they bring up authentic Islamic teaching, then they see that it is strictly prohibiting violence against women. They love those men to educate their daughters. And I see this, look at this beautiful daughter with her father, right? Her hand is with her father in these protective hands. Next slide. So I found those men. So now what we are doing right now is, I'm in the village. You can see that. These men, some religious men, some common men of the society, we talk, we share, we discuss, and I found support of those men. A movement in making for gender justice, a movement in making for prevention of domestic violence, a movement by men to be fully engaged, standing firm and supporting women in their rights. I see that movement. I'm witnessing that movement in this area. Next slide. Sometimes I go to academic settings. I talk to women and men about it. And I see there is that material there. There is people are understanding there. They just need a little spark. And the spark need to be provided. Next slide. When I see in the villages, I see those kind of men. Do you see that beautiful man on the bike? These are kind of men. He looks like a strong, rigid, conservative person, or how the Western media portrays some people of that region, right? When they see that the guy with beard and turban and all that. But I assure you, because I know that he is a soft, kind, loving guy with a loving heart. Far as those three beautiful daughters, he has a bike and he has a dream, making sure his daughters complete their schooling, making sure his daughters are happy and they shine, making sure that his daughters never face violence in their life. This guy is taking his daughter every day in the morning to school on his bike. and then bringing them back. In a village, he's from Afghanistan. And then I spoke to the Ministry of Afghanistan. I say, I want to talk to this beautiful man. I want to talk to, look at the other guy on the right side, every day taking his daughter to school on his bicycle. These are the men who love their daughters, who want to make them happy and shine. So these are the men we are trying to engage and talk to them. Why you are different than others? Why you are different than others? Why you are rejecting these gender norms? Why you are standing firm for gender justice and prevention of all kinds of violence? I want to know, we want to know about them. We want to go dig deep and find out what are those motivating factors for them so we can highlight. This project is all about this. Next slide. So what we are trying to accomplish, global issue with local context. It's very important. You can't make policies in the drawing room of New York, UN office, and just apply. No, you need to take local context in consideration. Working with researchers and organization leaders to generate country, regional specific and cross-regional knowledge. The question we want to try to find out from these men, the guy I just showed you, the beautiful man I showed you just earlier, what narratives do men from diverse regional contexts share about their perspectives and the influences and experiences that encourage them to become involved in gender-based violence and IPV prevention and gender equity? What encouraged them? I want to know about that. It's very important to know about that. What actions, impacts, challenges, and personal transformation they experienced. How was their journey doing all that? Right? We want to know about that. Next. And this is the beginning of our journey about knowing that. We will generate, through this research, this global study, we will generate contextual knowledge, which is critical, which is missing. Literature is missing. There is a gap regarding the personal and community factors, family, childhood, legislation, religious, cultural, all those norms that catalyzed men's involvement in gender equity work. Understanding men's trajectories, their story, their journey of social transformative impacts of their involvement. This will tell us, these questions, this research will inform us about examining the avenues, strategies of engagement, approaches that men see, but that these men see most promising to involve other men for this initiative, to make it a bigger movement. And finally, informing and enhancing regional and cross-regional interdisciplinary research, policy, and community mobilization. So the journey continues. The movement is in making. Next. Very quick. Through sharing stories, men will increase awareness of their own journey. The impact is on me, on men. First, the impact is on men. An opportunity to reflect, reflexivity, so I can think about myself, right? Being a man, when there are this conversation going on, these interviews going on. And then we will be when we collect that data, then we have several innovative tools to mobilize and foster public discourse, film and digital stories telling, and improve organizational practices, influence policies. There will be conferences around the globe, seminars around the globe, online community of practice around the globe after this research in this project. Next. So by using men narrative of growth, the study will inform models and strategies to advance men's role in IPV and gender equity, enrich public discourse with films, as I just said, and digital stories, practitioners who are working in the field will gain valuable insight into best practices. What are the most effective ways of engaging men and creating a trustworthy environment with men? So we can work together on that. And most importantly, creating those policy dialogue, that safe space for discussion and dialogues at provincial, national, and global level. My friends, we know that healthy families are the bedrock of peace. We need peace. We need peace in this region. Globally, but we know that this region been through a lot. From my childhood, I've been seeing this different forms of violence. We need to give back this gift of peace to these devastated people of this region. But this gift needs to start from home, to communities and the policy-making institution. And my last line would be that this gift should be negotiated and offered in such a way in which all segments of society, including women, can appreciate it and celebrate it. Thank you. Janelle, you want to go for question answer?
I'm giving the answer to 4 to 5 questions.
Okay, so we have one question here to position to the panelists from Sobia Ali. How can we help in GBV being a responsible citizen, because we saw such cases in our surroundings as well, and those people never complained about it sometimes? So the responsibility of community members, perhaps, in reporting or what they can do alongside to support other members.
There's an acceptability as well, because the reasons around when it was seen that the GBV cases occurs, when they were asked whether they feel that this is not an abnormal behavior. So they said that they could justify that the husband could or the family member could beat. And this is because of the low literacy and lack of awareness among the female. So this is one of the keys.
Like here, if I can just quickly jump in, Janelle. It's a very important question. I think if it's asking, I need to read the question, but what you said is how we can involve community, right? In that. So for that, and particularly women, as Zainab said, education is the piece, is the key. That girls' education, women education, because education, I found in different communities, and there are studies after studies, that enrich you, that make you capable of saying what you want to say, raising questions, right? Thinking about your rights. So education is the key, that awareness is the key about it. And then slowly, gradually, cultures, yeah, there are issues about cultural rigidness or whatever, but cultures are not static. Cultures change. Cultures are fluid. So we would like that the culture would change for the well-being and positive social change of our communities. And it is changing. Let me say this to you. And Zainab, Ibrar, Asif, I think you will agree with me that there are positive changes in the communities, in the cities, in rural areas, in terms of girls' schooling, as well as prevention of domestic violence. Look at that, this recent bill, right? I was appreciating that recent bill in the legislation against domestic violence. This is a big achievement. So there is progress there.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jamal. I wanted to thank everybody for their presentation and the passion that is so evident that we all share. We've got one question in from Dr. Kaniz asking, why is gender equality important for development? Is there someone who wants to take that?
You want to
Oh, your mic is muted.
Okay. Zainab, you want to jump in? I can join you.
I mean, like gender equality, we are talking about 50-50%. So if you are taking away the 50% of the population that they are not contributing towards the development, how can we move towards the sustainable societies? So gender equality is very important for development.
Yeah, she said it like I would agree with that. And I mainly use the term, I don't want to complicate the issue, but I use the term gender justice. You know, we need justice in our societies. And we know that if the societies are not just, what will happen? Then everything is broken down, because you don't have trust in our communities and in our systems. So we do need gender justice in our societies for our growth. So if you see around the world, around the globe, if you look into, let me be a little focus on, so-called developed nation or Western nation, let me not talk about them. Let me talk about those developing countries. Studies after studies, we see that Islamic countries, where there is gender justice. Look at Turkey, look at Malaysia, look at Indonesia, look at Qatar. Wherever there is gender justice, gender equity, the whole society is growing. There is significant development there in many ways. So yes, it is critical, it is important for having a peaceful, developed nation. We need to have justice. We need to have just societies, and gender justice is on top of that.
Thank you very much, Zainab and Dr. Jamal. We have another question here to all of our panelists. And the speaker says, Sir, KPK was the last province to approve the bill against domestic violence, mainly due to strict opposition by extremist religious elements present in the provincial legislature. So what can be done to counter the falsified religious image used to oppress women?
You want me to jump in, Zainab and Ibrar, then you can join? It's a very good question. Okay. So, okay, go ahead.
I think Zainab.
Yes, let's it's also important to understand that in some of the legislation, we smoothly blame the religious parties. However, it might not be true, because the current government had the majority from the past few years until it came, and there were some other governments that were having the majority in the legislative assemblies. It's the will that actually matters, and also whenever it comes to the female pro-women legislation, there's always sensitivity, and it's always tagged with the religious belief. The domestic violence, I mean, like Islam is a religion of peace, and the violence is not allowed in any religion, in any society. It's not acceptable. When we say it's acceptable, no, it's not acceptable. It's actually the people's perception that happens. Things are changing. the better way to combat this issue of bringing everybody on one table is to speak their language. I'll just give an example that as the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is currently working on the child marriage restraint legislation. So what we have done with them, we have actually compiled the religious text from the different books, which is focusing on the marriage as being a very important component of a person's life, and how a person who has reached maturity can very well take care of this very important responsibility. So speaking in their language and bringing out the counter argument from the text that they are referring is the most effective way of doing so.
Yeah, and I will just, it's a big question, right? It's a very important one. I will just go a little back, what Zainab said, and there are some good progress, yes. Why it's happening in the region and why KP province, right, is the last one. And to make it brief, you know that, and we all know that this region since last 40 years, the war in Afghanistan, and then in this region, been through a lot, right? Before the invasion of Soviet Union, from where you can start, and the proxy war, this region was being used by foreign powers for proxy wars for decades, right? And those proxy wars brought violence overall in the region. It's not just that then violence won't stop. And it's basically impacted the social fabric of society. Extreme coercion of different religious texts were introduced in this region. And in that, everybody was involved from international community of doing that. It broke the social fabric of our culture, society. So what we need to do is, basically, Zainab alluded on that, we need to work together on bringing back the authentic Islamic teaching that prohibits all these acts. And I sometimes get involved with it. We have, in the region, we have good Islamic scholars, educated Islamic scholars, I call them. They want to do it. And when they bring those authentic Islamic teachings, things will change, because we need to bring those positive change so the community can own it. The community will own it when we address it according to their values. And if it's Islamic or cultural values, we basically look into things and move forward with those contexts. So yes, KP was the last one, but there is a background, unfortunately. And we need to identify that unfortunate background, that this region has been used by foreign powers for proxy wars. And those wars has an impact on the social fabric of the whole society.
Thank you. I think we've got another one here, and one of my reflections was that while the contexts are different, the themes are very much the same, and I recognize many of these same patterns from Canada. So the question is, can you include the patriarchal structure of society in KP as a cause of gender-based violence, and specifically VAG and VAW?
Zainab, you want to jump in and then I join?
You can start, and then I can pitch.
Ibrar, feel free to jump in if you think I'm missing something. So
okay, you will start and we will jump in.
Sure, yeah. So yes, the culture itself yes, the culture itself, a Pashtun culture, we can say that there is this patriarchy is there. So it's we have in Pashtun culture we call it Pukhtunwali. So Pukhtunwali has those elements of patriarchy, right? So the patriarchy, the word is, you can contextualize and define it. For example, in the Western world, it has its own meaning, right? And we can just quickly identifying it. But when you go into the cultural context, so the meaning would change a bit in different ways. So yes, we can say that the cultural context is there, the patriarchy, and it has an impact on that. But when we engage men and we start conversation on these issues, within that culture, we have seen that things would change. And when we use, as I mentioned earlier, the authentic resources, authentic sources, and work around the structure of the society, and work within, for example, the established Pushtun established institution of the society. There is patriarchy there, but you're going to still work there, right? You're going to still work with that institution for that profound change. So when we use hujra, when we use jarga, when you use those institutions which is already there for social change. So in this rigid kind of patriarchal structure, we can see the change happening, and we have, I'm witnessing that change in different levels in the society. Somewhere very slow, somewhere little.
Patriarchal culture is one of the component, however, not the only one. Here we see that, exercising the power, where you want to exercise the power, and the power ultimately gives you a mental authority, to exercise that gender-based violence on somebody who is not capable enough, or who is not as strong as the other person is. So it's more a social understanding, individual understanding, and sometimes not actually understanding the culture as well. Because in the existing patriarchal culture, we also see that there's respect for female, there's respect for mother, there's respect for the daughter. So it's not only the patriarchal culture, but the other components as well.
Ibrar, are you talking? Because you
okay, sure. I think you and Zainab has concluded very systematically. Let me clear something to Jeff, that the Pashtun culture, at one part, it's although patriarchal in structure, but on the other hand, it's very flexible as well. We have so much informal social institution in terms of, just like pointed out by the Aamir, in shape of hujra and jarga, but in so many cases we use the mosque as well as one of the, you can say, a leading place that can eliminate the gender-based violence in this region. I think from the last 40 years, as we are under continuous war, sometimes it's proxy war and sometimes it's internal displacement war, but most of the time we remain in some issues. So again, that has been polluted our culture as well in some or the other way. And it will take time to, in rebuilding, you can say it will take time to rebuild again, but we are not, you can say, it will take time. But I think there are more positive things than the negative things in counterculture. If I'm not, if I'm wrong, Jamal and Zainab can correct me.
No, no, it's very good.
But
Exactly. Yeah,
you've hit the number. There are more
yeah,
positive things
exactly.
as well.
Yeah, so this is important, and you reminded me, Zainab, and you reminded me that, and I mentioned earlier that how the definition of patriarchy is different, right? Like how you define it. Look at mother. Mother is the final authority. That's it. You know, I remember how my grandma was the most powerful woman in our home. My dad gonna be just following, and similarly then after that we see that in our culture that mother is such a powerful figure. And in one of my research, I suggested that the best thing to move in the community is mother. So why not to engage mothers for many issues around that? So yeah, so it's again a bit fluid definition. It's 10:30. So is there?
Yeah, I was just coming on to say we have reached our 10:30 time. And we have so many questions left, so it's unfortunate that we have to cut things off at this time. However, if you do have a question that was unanswered, please email it to that address that was in the chat box, thetransformativemen@gmail.com, and we will try to get back to you as best as we can with everyone. And just before we finish and say thanks to all of the presenters, this session has been recorded and it can be sent out to all of the attendees so you can refer to it as many times as you need. Please keep your eyes open for our future events. We still have the Caribbean and Nepal, and then the Canadian team will also be presenting. So again, thank you so much to everyone for attending, and many thanks to our speakers for joining us from different parts of the world, from Pakistan today. Thank you, Dr. Ibrar. Thank you, Zainab. Thank you, Asif. We appreciate you so much. And of course, Dr. Jamal, sorry. So thank you everyone for attending. And Dr. Lorenzetti, if you wanted to have some closing remarks.
Well, I'm just a learner here, and so I've just really appreciated the complexity, the boldness, the care, and the hope that has been shared today by our amazing speakers, Dr. Ibrar, Mr. Asif Khan, Ms. Zainab Khan, and Dr. Jamal. And, you know, your perspectives and your work are inspiring to all of us across the globe. We are together in this issue. And at the same time, we appreciate and respect that local solutions are driving, you know, the answers in each of our contexts, and sending a lot of respect for what's been shared today, which is very based on your experiences and so locally driven insights on what solutions look like in Pakistan. And so this is a great, you know, this is a wonderful learning for all of us. And at the same time, those of us in Canada can take some of those insights and those gems of information, and we can use them in our own context as well. So that's very beautiful. You know, I think that there's such strong leadership coming from Pakistan on these issues, and you've demonstrated that all today. So thank you so much. I would also like to thank our organizers, those who have worked hard behind the scenes today, and including being on the video, and that is Janelle, Leepong, Sarah Thomas, Jeff Halverson, who are co-coordinating, supporting us with the project, and Don McSweeney, who is our master of everything Zoom. So thank you so much for that. And then finally, I'd like to say that all of you who attended today, such profound questions, very insightful questions and commentary. I think it's coming from people who are very engaged in the work. And so we can learn a lot from you, and we hope to hear more from you. And on that note, you know, I think from Dr. Jamal and I and the team, we would love to invite you to join our community of practice. We are building a community of practice together. It is open, and we hope that you will join us again for our learning series and also be involved in the other work that we are doing together. So thank you so much. I would like to wish all of my friends who are in the month of Ramadan all the best with the wonderful and important reflective process that you're in, which I have a lot of respect for as well. And so thank you so much. I will turn it over to Dr. Jamal to close for today.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. It was an amazing event.
Take good care, everyone, and see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us. All the best.
Thank you, Liza, and thank you, Aamir and Janelle, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Zainab.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll talk. Yeah.
Take care, everyone. All the best.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We can Lisa